Welcome to our Moonhack code along for the project Constellations. Microbits use LED lights as part of their programming, and LED lights have played a huge part in space. They've been used as red LEDs to help the growth of plants in space, and they've also been used as a medical treatment to help prevent muscle loss in a weightless space. How amazing is that technology? Let's have a go at a microbit project where we're going to turn our microbits into sparkling stars to make a constellation. I'm going to make a new project and I'm going to call it Constellation. So here I have my microbit on the screen here. I love this in MakeCode Editor because I can test my code as I'm going along and not have to transfer it to my microbit all the time. I've got two inputs here to begin with. I'm not actually going to use the forever one, so I'm going to drop that away, but we are going to start with the on start menu. So in this project, we're going to need a minimum of 2 microbits. If you're just using the editor, you will get 2 that will pop up on your screen. But if you're doing this in real life and you've got more microbits, the more that you have of them, the better it is. With the first one on start, we need to set up the radio signal, and we're going to set our radio group. I'm going to choose the number 2. This means that all microbits that are set on that radio group will actually transmit together. Once they have done that, I want to set the brightness. Now I need to create this as a variable. So let's make a variable and call it bright. And so I can drag this across and set the bright to 255, which is the brightest we can make our LED lights. Now, this radio group, we want to be able to use it to send a string, a piece of information or a message to each other. And we actually need a person to input this and tell us when to begin. So we're going to use the input on button A as pressed. And when it is, we're going to send that radio string. So we want to bring this one across, radio send string. Make sure you get the ones with the inverted commas because this means we can put text in, and we're going to call it star. So in our radio menu, when we've got on radio received, and we need received string, it's going to receive a string of text. Now, when it does that, we need to be able to tell it what to do. So we're going to bring in a logic block here, the if then, and drop it into the middle. So we need to bring in a logic operator or comparison tool. We're going to use this one equals, making sure once again we use the one with inverted commas because we're working with text here, not numbers. So let's drop it in place of that word true. We're going to bring down the received string bubble to the front. And if it also then receives the word star, here's what we want it to be able to do. First of all, it's going to pause and take a little bit of a pause here. Now, pause here works in milliseconds. Now, because I've got stars in the sky twinkling, they don't happen exactly the same. So we're going to use the random operator here. So let's jump into the math section and we're going to bring across pick random, and we'll get it anywhere between 100 and 400 milliseconds. So each one will be a little bit different. Once it's received these two, it's had its pause, then we're going to get it to create its twinkle. Now, twinkle is not a block here that we can easily just drag across. We're actually going to create our own block. So let's jump into the advanced, and we're going to choose the function. We're going to create a new function, and let's call it twinkle. So instead of do something, function twinkle, and then click done. Now, it's got its own event or its own input starter here. almost ready for that. What we are going to do is back on our radio received block underneath pause, jump back into your functions menu, and now drag across call twinkle. So our first step is to think about creating the images on the LED. Now, we're going to put a loop in first, a repeat loop. And that randomness we want to bring into here. So let's jump into the math menu and bring across pick random. And I'm going to leave it as between 0 and 10. This is going to be the number of the times that the two different images flick between each other on the LED. So we're going to input two images on the LED. Now in Microbit, you've got two options. You can create your own, or you can select from a preset menu. Now I know that in here there is one, it looks a bit like a star, it's called stick figure because it looks a bit like one. But my second one, I am going to increase, I think, the middle part. Oh, there we go. So I've got a larger one and then a smaller one. So these two are going to flick between, and it's going to be a random number of times. We also wanted to change the brightness. So if I jump into my set variables menu, and we're going to bring across change brightness by -25. So if I think about here, we have got our brightness set right at the very beginning to 255. It's going to come into here, it's going to show my big star, my small star, and then shrink that brightness down. What I need it to do is that I need it to hold on to that new set of brightness. So let's jump into our LED menu and then the More menu underneath. And we're going to bring across this set brightness. We actually want it to be whatever the bright is now set at. So let's go back to our variables menu and drag across that bright. So as it dims it by 25, it will remember the new setting of it. So this will be down to 230. As it goes back to flick the two pictures again, reduced by another 25, it will remember that now it's down to 205. So it will slowly look like it is dimming in brightness. We're also going to add a pause function once it's dimmed that brightness, just maybe 40 milliseconds, a really tiny little bit, just so it becomes obvious, that twinkling function and that little lapse in the brightness. Okay, so once we have done this and it's completed its random number of loops, let's program what it's going to do when those loops are finished. So we're going to tell it to clear the screen. We want it to get rid of any LED image that is still sitting on top of it. We want that completely gone. And then we do want to set the brightness back to its original value of 255. And then we're going to once again lock that brightness in. So go back to your LED menu and the More function side and bring in the set brightness, and then drop in the variable bright from that function. So it resets it back to 255. Now, if my microbit has done all of that, I now want it to trigger another microbit starting its twinkling journey. So in the radio function, I'm going to get it to radio send the string, remember the string, and we call that star. And it will now trigger off another microbit to start. We can test our programming now. So over here, I've got my microbit. It's colored, so it's letting me know that it's registered all of the code on this side. And my input was button A. You see my two microbits. It's twinkling. That was 3 rotations at center radio. That was 1. And I can see that they are slowly dimming as it goes through. Oh, that one's really dimming down. So I can see that my programming has worked. It's time now to download it onto my own microbits. Congratulations on completing the Constellation project. Really can't wait to see what you're going to do to change, adapt, and create this project. Maybe you are going to now go and grab cardboard and craft supplies and create the backdrop that your LEDs can shine through to look like a constellation in the sky. Perhaps you're going to take your microbits and actually arrange them in the shape of a constellation. Here in Australia, the Southern Cross is probably our most well-known constellation, and we could take our microbits and recreate this. Thinking about that though, we could extend the coding in our program to actually reflect the constellations. Each of the stars are different sizes, so how could I code that within my programming? Some of the stars actually shine brighter than the others. So again, how could I put that programming into my LEDs to reflect that actual constellation in the sky? Here at Moonhack Mission Control, we are so glad that you've joined us in Moonhack this year. Please get a trusted adult to share back with us your project and your program. We're really excited to see the work that you have created. We also hope that you go and try one of the other projects that are available from this year or the years past. Thanks for joining us today. Happy coding, everyone.